1. So I work at Smith's Food and Drug. Side note, for those who don't know what that is, it's basically just a small grocery store. I'm a courtesy clerk, which means I am the grunt of the whole store. Anyways, this happened a few weeks ago. One day I was on lot. Side note, that means I pulled the shopping carts into the store. I saw two very overweight people unloading groceries into said van. I walked over and asked if there was any way I could help. They said that all they needed me to do was take one of the carts back. Here's the fuck up. So when it was empty, I sit down in the cart and push the go button. Now this would not be so bad if the wheel was facing forward instead of facing the right, exactly where one of the customers was standing. So I knocked over the customer with the cart, and he hit the ground with a mighty thud. My face went pale and I was screaming in my head, "You fucking idiot! You're fucked now! You'll lose your job this time for sure!" Fortunately, they had a good laugh and were not mad at me. Needless to say, I now always look before I leap. 2. Obligatory, this happened when I was around 11 years old. My parents brought my sister and I to this cruise called Superstar Virgo, and it was already our third time there, and we loved the childcare center there cause ball pits and mazes and stuff. But I was already 11 and pretty tall for my age and shit. The childcare personnel weren't too happy to see me cause I was too grown for them, but whatever, ball pits for the win. So my sister and I roam around, and we chance upon this cinema that we've never been into before. It has a big screen playing Barbie, and instead of seats, there are just beanbags and pillows everywhere. Paradise for me, obviously, and there was no one inside. My sister and I are shouting and screaming about getting the best spot in the room. Now, this is important to note because cinemas are dark, and so the room was dark. I made it a point to step on every single beanbag I saw, and not just step, jump on them with all my might. So I was jumping onto everything floppy I could see. That was when I saw a white one, and there were no white ones. In a kid's mind, there is no such thing as hesitation or questioning. So with all my energy, I plopped onto the white beanbag, only to realize it wasn't a beanbag, because I had fallen over at the difference in texture. It was someone's stomach. All I knew was that I heard a loud oomph and a groaning sound as I saw a figure in black curl up in pain. I then realized I had stepped on someone and I was panicking. I thought I killed him. It didn't make it better that while I was panicking, I stepped on him a little more. Just a little. My sis figured out what was happening and she panicked. And she fucked up as well cause she pulled open the emergency door that led to the arcade instead, and it set up an alarm throughout the whole cruise. And also bringing in a lot of older teenagers into the Barbie room, gawking at the fallen victim. Needless to say, the personnel brought him out, iced his stomach, don't know how that's supposed to help, while they glared at me. It was announced that the magic show was cancelled due to an accident. Till now I feel terrible, but imagine taking a nap in a room, ready to do magic tricks, and some 11-year-old kid jumps on your stomach while you're sleeping. Wow, I still cringe. The only funny thing that came out of it was that the magician wasn't as angry as the others. He still kinda smiled at me. Maybe I gave him a longer nap. So my sister and I are banned from the childcare center from then on. My parents were really embarrassed, and we were only allowed in the arcade, which wasn't great for me because I was still a pussy at zombie games. 3. This story isn't from today, it's from Halloween my senior year of high school. I was, and still am, extremely oblivious, especially about things involving sex. I imagine she'd been dropping hints for weeks, but this was probably her attempt at using a true clue by 4. She asked me what I was doing for Halloween, and I said not much. I was just going to be handing out cotton candy at the block party on my street. She said that her family was going to be out of town, which meant that she wasn't doing much either. Then she said that if we both had nothing to do, we should hand out at her place, watch some movies, eat some candy, have some fun. Have some fun. God, I am dense. I said sure, and she was almost ridiculously pleased about that. Which makes a lot more sense given that she thought she was finally about to get laid. Halloween finally rolled around, and I went about my business, passing out the cotton candy for my street's block party. It's a very fun job. The kids look so happy to get the fluff, and it gives me a chance to wear a costume. That year, I'd chosen to wear a minion costume, which makes sense for someone interacting with kids, but is the exact opposite of whatever sexy is. I was wearing jean overalls, oversized safety goggles, and most importantly, full yellow body paint. To a kid, I was a minion, but to an adult, I was a hillbilly with severe jaundice. When it started to get close to 9, the time of the date, I pulled my brother aside, set him to running the machine, then went into the house to change. This is where I made my mistake. See, I didn't know she was trying to seduce me. I had no idea. I thought we were just going to watch The Phantom Menace. So with this in mind, I was about to wash all the paint off and change into normal clothes. But I decided not to, figuring I would bring the change of clothes to her house, show off my goofy costume, then clean myself up and watch some movies with her. After all, why not? We were just hanging out. It wasn't like we were going to commence the horizontal humpus rumpus, right? 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 So, my change of clothes in a bag, I left the house, jumped into my truck, and drove over to her house. No big deal. I strode down the concrete pathway, knocked twice on the door, and yelled, "It's Don Harold!" She yelled from inside, "Let yourself in," which I did. I opened the door, walked down the hallway that went to her family's entertainment center, then jumped out from behind the corner and struck a pose. Then I froze. She was naked. Not a little bit naked, or kind of naked, but plain stark naked. She was laying across her couch like an old painting. She had candles lit. She had roses scattered on the floor. I just wasn't prepared for this. I had no idea what to do. I'd never had anything like this happen to me ever. I'd never even kissed a girl before. So my brain kind of just blue-screened. Now I wasn't the only one caught totally off guard. Of all the possible responses this girl could have expected, having me show up as a jaundiced hillbilly was not one of them. So she also blue-screened. So we're sitting there, and it's like a quick draw to see whose brain reboots the fastest. And of course she wins. Of course she does. If there is anything you've picked up in this story, is that I do not think good. She says, "DH, what the hell are you wearing?" And while I'm not fully rebooted, I'm still able to answer basic questions, so I say, "Overalls." And she opens her mouth, like she's about to ask something else, probably something like, "Yeah, I know, but why the hell are you yellow?" But she stops when she realizes I have no idea what's going on about anything. So instead we sit there and wait for my brain to reboot. Finally, I get an idea of what I need to do. I need more time to think. Unfortunately, I did not communicate this with my date. So instead of saying, "Back in a jiffy," or "Hey, I'm going to shower," and when I come out, I'll have a response, or any number of things that would not have been appallingly stupid. I just walked back down the hall, closed the door behind me, got behind the wheel of my car, and idled around the neighborhoods for about half an hour. Now I swear I wasn't just bailing. I just needed to think. And I like to drive when I think. Anyway, after my little half hour, I began to come to terms with what I just experienced, and realized that I needed to at least try and make things right with this chick. So I flip around and idle my way back to her house. Get out, knock on the door, and wait for the worst. Doesn't happen. She answered the door, clothed this time. Thank God. Not that she wasn't beautiful, she was. I just wasn't ready for that again. I say, hey, I need to shower. She leads me there, and after a couple minutes I emerge, human once more. I went back to the entertainment room and sat down next to her on the couch, and we cuddled a bit as we watched the movie. I had my first kiss after it was finished. Then we talked a little afterwards about compatibilities and all that. She was a normal human with a normal sex drive, while I was me, with the kind of sex drive associated with dead stuff or plants than mammals. We broke things off, and it was okay. I hadn't really thought there was anything abnormal about my sex drive until that day. But it's been a noteworthy part of every relationship I've been in since. We stayed friends, weirdly enough, at least until college. When that came, we went our separate ways, and that was that. 4. I am originally from Maryland, and still currently am. But when I finally had my shit together and found a salaried job in 2011, I moved out of my folks' home and headed to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My sister came to help me unload. Once I put my furniture together, hooked up my electronics, and displayed my photos, I stood there, looked at the living room and took a big breath of air, feeling happy that I was independent. I promised myself I would take care of this apartment. Fast forward 2 months. One day as soon as I got home, unbuckled my belt, ripped off that fucking tie and tossed my jacket, I lounged after a hard day of work. Suddenly I get a call from an unknown number. I pick it up, and it turns out to be this chick I used to fool around with on the regular about a year ago. She told me she was in Pittsburgh and heard I lived there. Let's call her Emily. Emily was a drifter type chick, a Grateful Dead hitchhiking hippie. I really used to dig her back in the day, but we ended up just being friends. Those fun kind of friends. I was very surprised and delighted she wanted to come see me. I gave her my address. She was able to get a cab halfway, and then I picked her up. We got back to my place and talked for a long time, really catching up and getting super stoned. Eventually we went to bed. I woke up to Emily nudging me. As soon as she had my attention, she embarrassingly told me she clogged the toilet. And I mean really clogged it. I grunted, got up, and told her it's okay, shit happens. No pun intended. I first tried plunging it. That didn't work. Then I tried some old plumbing tricks my old man taught me. Still didn't work. The water was just overflowing to the rim. Any flush and it's over. I can't let this toilet break or I'm fucked with my landlord. That is when wait for it. I stuck my hand deep down into the dungeon and pulled out a wad of fucking paper towels, along with a sudden rush of feces shooting up my arm as it flushed. It was absolutely disgusting. My floor was shit, my walls were shit, and even my ceramic race car thingy my sister made for me was shit. Emily continued crying and started helping me clean up, while I tried fixing the toilet even more. After hours of her really cleaning it, I only had an hour to sleep before work. She kept apologizing. I said, it's okay, but don't flush wads of paper towel down a toilet. It's common sense, I thought, in my head. After we shower together, and she old man nursing home style cleans me too, I'm ready to leave. I arrive at work with a dreadful and exhausted look in my face. My co-workers asked what was wrong. Are you hungover? I said my ex came to visit. My co-worker said, how was it? I responded, pretty shitty. 5. This happened a few years ago. Let me begin with a preface before I go reminiscing about the past. During college, I lived off campus my sophomore, junior, and senior year in different houses. Out of the 3 years, my sophomore year was probably the wildest years of my entire life. Not only was it my first time living without strict parental or RA guidance. But it also was my first time being responsible for an entire property and having the ability to do anything I want. The house was a spacious raised ranch property. There was a huge living room that connected with the dining room and kitchen, along with 2 full bathrooms and an outdoor deck that had stairs leading to a roof where I could marvel at the ocean in the distance. Basically, the ocean was my backyard. I lived with 3 other people, Posh and Goldie, who were my frat brothers, and Gucci, who is my cousin, who is also my writing partner. Now, it would be criminal to write a year's worth of everything that happened in that house. To abuse your innocent eyes with the tens of thousands of words that describe the insanity, nastiness, and overall ridiculousness that took place would be nothing short of eye rape. So instead, I offer you, the reader, the choice of whether or not my stories are worthy to continue on. I will go into as much detail as my memory will allow, and share with you what happened that day or night. If you enjoyed the story, upvote. If you are disgusted, feel personally violated, or had your time wasted, well, too bad. The more upvotes, the more stories I will post, and the better they shall get. Rivey, being myself, and Gucci, being my cousin, will switch off narrating for you depending on the story and the people involved. Before each post, we will be sure to note who's authoring the story. For my first post, I will tell you a story that isn't too sickening, but falls into the spectrum of straight-up stupidity. I hope this breaking of the literary ice is to your liking. Without further ado, My Cousin Gucci and the TV Stand by Rivey. My cousin is around 5'7" and looks like a morphed version between Adrian Brody and Robert Downey Jr. Added with a hint of 1990s fashion, this took place in 2013-2014. Other than his looks, his skinniness happens to be his most notable feature. In fact, he is so skinny, pointed, and angular, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if a carpenter used him to take exact angled or perfect 90-degree measurements. The story begins in the quiet morning of a random day during the 2nd semester of the school year, a good 5 months into our occupancy of this house. I am awoken to the sound of my cousin wallowing in pain, as his room is close to mine in the basement. Oh, Jesus Christ, my goddamn knee! This is a daily common occurrence due to the fact that my cousin is a drummer and has his set only a few inches outside his bedroom door. Every time in the morning, in his drowsy state of mind, would always open his door and immediately whack a part of his pointed body on his drum kit. Apparently the winner this morning was his knee. Judging by the pin in his voice, I could instinctively concur that he really whacked his knee hard, so I giggle quietly to myself before I fall back asleep. Time goes by and I'm on campus during a break between classes. My cousin's schedule is similar to mine, so around this time we'd meet at the campus cafe and shoot the shit before my next class. I get there, and to my surprise he isn't sitting down at our usual spot, typing away on his MacBook. I look around for a few seconds, but to no avail. Now this is new to me. Throughout the whole year at this point, my cousin hasn't been absent once from our cafe breaks. So naturally, I text him. No response. I wait. I wait a little longer. I text him again. Nothing. It went from, "Hey dude, I'm at the Clam's Den," not the real name of the cafe. "Where the fuck are you?" to, "Listen you bastard, I'm sitting down alone like a fucking leper. Stop jerking your crooked skinny wart and pimple-covered dick and come here." Nothing. So I sit down alone and get some work done before my next class. I arrive home early in the evening and notice my cousin's Jeep is here. My other 2 roommates aren't home yet. Great, I thought to myself. He wasn't kidnapped and forced to stick matchsticks up his ass while lemons were being squeezed into his eyes. That's another story. So no need to worry there. I enter the house and go upstairs to grab a drink from the fridge when I see my buddy Hencho sitting on the couch in the living room, smoking the communal bong. A little backstory on Hencho. Hencho is around 30 plus years old at the time. He is a Canadian from Canada. who was in the same frat as me. He lived a few streets over and was taking classes to finish up his degree. Hencho resembled Cosmo Kramer in a way. No, not the wacky hair or the way he looked, but a resemblance of his mannerisms. At times he'd barge into the house without knocking, pack the bong bowl to the brim with his weed, and rip the whole thing in one go. He'd hold in the smoke for as long as he could, slowly exhale where no smoke would come out, give us or whoever was there a quick wink, and leave without saying a word. It was pretty funny to say the least. I plop down next to him and we talk, and take rips of the bong. He asks me where Posh and Goldie were. I say I have no idea. We keep smoking and smoking until we get retardedly high. Like Helen Keller high, but we obviously can still see, hear and speak. Anyway, I get hungry and forgot to go grocery shopping. I wasn't about to move my lazy ass to get something, so I decide to do the appropriate thing and order a pizza. Me being the selfless and caring roommate cousin that I am, text Gucci to see if he wanted anything. 10 minutes go by and there's no response. What the fuck is this kid's deal? First he ignores me during break, makes me sit alone at the cafe, and now he's still not responding to my texts to see if he wants pizza. Pizza! It's not like I'm offering him a gooey slice of coagulated dolphin jizz. It's fucking delicious pizza. This pisses me off. I ask Hencho if my cousin is even home since his car was outside, and he hasn't come upstairs for the good 30 minutes I've been here. He says he saw him walk in, didn't say hi, and went straight downstairs to his room. Okay, maybe he's having a bad day and whatnot. I can deal with it. Nah, fuck that. In our high and clouded state of mind, we decide we are going to address my cousin for being such a flake today. We go downstairs to see what this kid's problem was. I approached his closed door and knock, no response. I look out of the sliding doors and see his car still in the driveway. I put my fucking ear against the door and can hear the TV on. I knock louder, no response. I jerk around with the doorknob and the door is locked. Okay, you dick, I see how it is. Hencho and I take a step back and look around for things to use to fuck with him. All of a sudden, I see the big TV stand in the corner of the basement. I begin to smile larger than an autistic hyena. I quietly push my cousin's drum shit as far away from his door as it can go. Yo, Hencho, see that fucking TV stand over there? Help me move and prop it on Gucci's door, I whispered. We quietly lift the TV stand up and move it over to his door. Now this TV stand is kinda tall and pretty fucking heavy. I'm not a weak guy, and even with 2 men this was kind of a bitch move. This stand was all solid wood, with all the drawers filled with shit. It had to be at least 200 to 250 plus pounds, total. We balanced the stand until it's on one leg and leaning on his door. Great, you don't want to come out and be social? You can stay in there all night, I thought to myself. My cousin is a string bean, so there's no way he's opening his door with the stand propped on it. His room is too small to even get a running start and push it open. We giggle more and more as we position the stand so it's stable as possible. All of a sudden, "What are you fucking retards doing out there?" my cousin says as he unlocks and opens the door. Bam! The stand crashes into my cousin's head right before Hencho and I quickly catch it. Me being the complete fucking idiot I am, forgot that his door opens from the inside, not out. Our plan of him being stuck in his room and not being strong enough to push his door open quickly failed, as the complete weight of the balanced TV stand cracked him in the head. Luckily, our reflexes were fast enough to maneuver the stand away from crushing my cousin's malnourished and fetal-positioned body on the floor. We say sorry a million times as he's rolling on the ground in pain. As I was profusely apologizing, I was also processing what just happened in my mind, and couldn't help but laugh a little. My cousin gets up, sticks his head in our faces to show that he has a pretty decent cut and is bleeding, nothing serious, grabs his things and walks out of the house. He backs out of the driveway and screws off. Enjo and I quickly talk about what just happened, laugh it off, went back upstairs and continued to smoke. This story is nothing compared to the shit that we did that year. This was just a taste. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories episode 39. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'd also like to give a shout out to Rivy, I think it's Rivy, and his cousin Gucci for allowing me to use their story regarding the TV stand. Okay, I hope you guys have a nice weekend ahead of you. I currently have no plans, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. Might take a walk down to one of my local electronics stores. There's some things I've been meaning to look at, see if they have them in stock. I'm sure I'll find something to keep me entertained. I should continue tidying out the back garden, make it look all pretty. Okay, and with that I think I'm going to cut the outro short. I think I've worn my voice out a bit after doing 3 videos in a row there, so I'm going to go have a bit of a rest. And with that I'll leave you for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.